Good morning. Is everybody ready? This is our last outdoor service, at least for this year. I know it's kind of chilly. Everybody looks like they're comfortable. Welcome to our service today. We're outside on the lawn at the Catskills Sanctuary on Saw Hill Road. I'm Pat Hurst, a member of the worship committee. For those here and those at home watching on Zoom, it's a beautiful fall day. We at Catskills are a welcoming congregation. We welcome members, friends, and guests. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you're welcome here. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religious faith that carries no creed and welcomes all seekers. We are guided by 7 principles and 6 sources that encompass the many ways that we come to know and understand the world, the universe, and the divine. If you are a visitor and would like to be added to our mailing list, please go to our website, uucatskills.org, or you can give me your contact information after the service. For those of you online watching through Zoom, please put your email in the chat box or online at our website. Our values are very important to us here at UU Catskills, and we live our values on a daily basis. We affirm that Black Lives Matter. We welcome the LGBTQ community. We are an affiliate of the Ulster Immigration Defense Network, and we are an active voice in the effort to address climate change. With climate change in mind, I'd like to share with you a remark made by our U.S. Secretary of Interior, Deb Haaland, a citizen of Laguna Pueblo in New Mexico and America's first Native American cabinet secretary. Her remarks were made to the United Nations. It is indigenous resilience and worldview that every government, country, and community can learn from, so that we manage our lands, our waters, our resources, not just across budget years, but across generations. We have community circles here at UU Catskills to provide our members with connection to others that live in their local community. There are 9 circles in different areas, and each meets monthly, either in an in-person or online format. If you would like to contact someone at UU Catskills, our minister, the board, our caring team, or our office administrator, you can pick up a list of email addresses on the table behind you, next to the coffee. And for those online, the list is on the screen. Also on the table in back is the order of service, and so do pick up one of those. There are several events this coming week. This evening at 7 is the Grief Support Group. Thursday is Bedtime Story and More at 7 p.m. And next Saturday, October the 30th, you want to mark your calendar for this. This is one day before the UN Climate Summit begins on Sunday. We will join churches around the globe for a Ring in the Climate at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Our climate action team has planned a healing sound gong ceremony to be performed by Teresa Whitman of the Anahata Yoga and Healing Art Studio. This will be held on the front lawn of Temple Emmanuel on Albany Avenue in Kingston at 1 o'clock next Saturday. Please park on the street and not in the parking lot. And after this service this morning, please stay if you can to help make a sign to take to the ceremony on Saturday, and it will be used also for Fridays for the Future that are held every Friday at Academy Green from 11 till noon. Also, after the service, we have a picnic. So I hope everyone is around. As I mentioned, this is our last service outside as winter is approaching. We're getting a little chilly. So starting in November, all our services with Reverend Bob in the pulpit, and that's the key, with Reverend Bob in the pulpit, will be held inside in the sanctuary. And the service will be on Zoom. Other services that are lay services led by the worship associates or others are held on Zoom for the next little while. Those of you who have registered to go inside don't have to do anything. You're all set. If you have not registered but would like to, then you can email me a copy of your VAX card, and you can state that you agree to wear a mask inside the building. The numbers we will have inside are limited to around 30, so we are going to have to manage the number of people that can come each week. We'll do that through our invitation list. Those of you that registered know that I sent out an email on Wednesday before an outdoor service, and I'll continue doing that, but if we grow, I'll reduce that invitation list to some number that will allow for some people not to come, okay? So if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask me after the service, or you can email me. For our prelude this morning, Catherine Catabiani will play Kyrie of the Magdalene by Richard Harvey.
Good morning. Welcome wherever you are joining us from this morning. Welcome in this in-person gathering, this gathering all around the world. If you're joining us this morning from the southern hemisphere here in the Catskills, we're getting ready for winter. It's getting a little chilly and we're in this glorious, brisk season of autumn. It is good to be together. Each Sunday that we gather together, we light a chalice to symbolize the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the fire of community. And I'd like to invite Maddie forward to light our chalice this morning, their mom, Lisa. What are we, any of us, but strangers and sojourners, forlornly wandering through the nighttime until we draw together and find the meaning of our lives in one another, dissolving our fears in each other's courage, making music together and lighting torches to guide us through the dark. May the light we kindle in our time together guide us once again through the dark and into the bright dawn of courage. Words by A. Powell Davies. Now we join together in our unison affirmation. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love to all living beings. May we know once again that we are not isolated but connected in wonder and joy, to mystery and miracle, in the universe, in this community, and in each other. An opening thought by Carrie Nee Doherty from her book, Thin Places. Time as we know it is the original shapeshifter. Now the lines of it run straight as an old railway track. Now it is a circle. Many circles, in fact. Now it dances without moving, to and fro across millennia, around the whole turning world, filling the night sky with bounding green lights. Past, future, present. The unbidden, ineffable gift of it all. Memory is like a white moth in flight. Sometimes she comes so close that we can see the light falling into the hidden parts of ancient markings. On other days, we cannot see her, but we feel the delicate wing beat down deep in beside our bones. Service theme is called Thin Times, which in Celtic mythology is these times when things feel close. The past and the future feel close. Perhaps our ancestors, we feel close to one another. So let's sing a song now that always makes me think of these thin times and thin places, like this one, when we are close to what is meaningful and holy. We'll sing together, Find a Stillness. 352.
Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
What a beautiful melody. We now have a heart story for all ages, and we introduce it with our Wonder Box, reminding ourselves that we are people of wonder, always wondering and learning about the world. Would anyone like to, you know the drill. So if you'd like to, someone open the Wonder Box, maybe you can open it together. Have a look, let's see what's in there. A snake, you want to take it out if you're feeling brave and show it? A snake. Well, I thought this is the week before. What's coming up next week? Yep. Halloween, right? Which is one of my favorite holidays. I love Halloween. And one of the things you do at Halloween, apart from trick-or-treating and all the other fun things, is telling stories, right? We told a story here a couple days ago at our family's event. Great. And we're going to tell another story here today. And I love telling stories because people have done this, gathered around outside and told stories for hundreds of years. The I-87 was a little less busy back then, but this is what our ancestors in all different cultures have been doing for centuries. So this is a story that's not quite that old. It's a little bit traditional. It's called The Viper. Has anyone heard of The Viper? It's a little bit scary. I hope I don't scare you all, but sometimes in a story we can find out we're not as afraid as we think we are. So I'm going to tell a spooky story, okay? Okay. This story is about a girl whose name was Rachel, and she lived on the 10th floor of an apartment building. And it was late at night, and it was dark, and she was doing her homework, and her parents had stepped out. She was old enough to be home alone, and she was at home doing her homework when the phone rang. And she thought, and it rang and rang. She thought, can't be for me, right? If they want to reach me, they'd text or they'd whoosy or whatsy or WhatsApp or all that kind of thing. Wouldn't be. But she said, oh, my parents will be mad if I don't pick up the phone. So she picked up the phone, and then on the phone a voice came and said, this is the Viper. I'm outside your building, and I'm coming up. Well, Rachel was really frightened. She hung the phone up, and she didn't know what to do, and she thought maybe it was just a prank call or something. And then the phone rang again. And without thinking, she picked it up, and the voice said, this is the Viper. I'm on the 5th floor, and I'm coming up. Oh, dear. Well, now she was really frightened. Wouldn't you be frightened? I'd be frightened. And so she hid, and she didn't know what to do. But then the phone rang again, and it rang, and not knowing what to do, Rachel picked it up, and the person on the phone said, this is the Viper. I'm outside your door, and I'm coming in. And the door opened, and there was a man there and with a bucket and something in his hand, and she screamed, and he said, what are you screaming about? This is the Viper. I'm here to wash and wipe your windows. Do you get it? Wash and wipe your windows.
Wash and wipe.
So that is a bit of a silly, scary story. Like I say, it's a chestnut. It's an old story. Put the snake back in. Good. Let's put this. But sometimes we're talking about cultivating relationship this month, and sometimes we're not as scared of each other as we need to be. Really, Rosalie. Yes, a viper is another name for a snake. So that's talking about snakes. Yeah, that's a good point. So they were scared. Rachel was scared of the viper, but it turned out sometimes when we know where somebody's coming from, we find out it's not as scary as it should be. So thanks for listening to that scary story. You're not going to have nightmares, are you? Not with that story, are you? It's a silly one. But I hope you have a wonderful Halloween, and thank you for sharing this story time together. So we'll now have a reading, and children will go to your classes. It's wonderful to see you. We'll have a reading about this season, and the Celtic name for Halloween, as some of you may know, is called Samhain. So this reading is called Samhain by the poet Annie Finch, and it's to be read by Pat Hurst. Thank you, Pat.
In the season, leaves should love, since it gives them leaves to move through the wind, towards the ground they were watching, while they hung. Legend says there is a seam stitching darkness like a name. Now when dying grasses veil earth from the sky in one last pale wave, as autumn dies to bring winter back, and then the spring, we who die ourselves can peel back another kind of veil that hangs among us like thick smoke. Tonight at last I feel it shake. I feel the night stretching away, thousands long behind the days till they reach the darkness where all of me is ancestor. I move my hand and feel a touch move me. And when I brush my own mind across another, I am with my mother's mother. Sure as footsteps in my waiting self, I find her, and she brings arms that carry answers for me. Intimate, awaiting bounty. Carry me. She leaves this trail through a shudder of the veil, and leaves, like amber where she stays, a gift for her perpetual gaze.
It's been a while since we have done joys and concerns in this congregation, and I know the life continues for the congregation, so I want to have an opportunity if anyone has any momentous event happening with them or in their family or lift up. We're going to keep it to about 3 or 4 or 5, I think, so maybe just really major ones. If you're watching online, you can put it in the chat and I can read a couple of those on. So if you would just either type your joy and concern in the chat. And if anyone here has, we don't have candles. We've seen it's a challenging in the wind to light candles, so we're going to do it virtually. But if anyone has a joy, a sorrow, a hope on their hearts to share this hour, you are kindly invited to do so. Anyone like to share a joy or concern? Rosalie. Thank you, Rosalie. I didn't for a neighbor that was. No, I'll repeat them. That we keep your neighbor in gratitude and love. Anyone else? Have to speak loud, I'm afraid of it. Wow. Congratulations on the certification to foster children. What a wonderful blessing. Thank you. I'm sorry, for Jenny.
I didn't get it, yeah.
Jenny Giddy's partner. We're holding Jenny. We're holding your partner in our prayers and our love as she's in hospice, and today's also her birthday. So very happy birthday, Jenny. I know it's a very difficult time as well. So holding you in love and your partner as well. Jenny's partner. So love to your niece expecting her first baby boy. Let's see if there's any. For connections with, for re-fostered connections with you, between you and your daughter, and think connections. We also hold Kathy's son Chris in our prayers, who's in hospital, as well as Jenny's partner Charles is mentioned. And Anne says she's grateful for visits from parents and good friends, and grateful to attend a funeral in person of a close family friend. So holding you in our heart, holding Anna in our heart at a difficult time, and grateful for visits from parents and good friends, and that she was able to attend a funeral of a close family friend. A special time. So we'll hold those all those sorrows, those joys, those poignant connections and challenging times, and we'll hold them together in the chalice of this community. We know this is a place of connections as well as being a place of felt distances sometimes. In the poem we just heard, the poet said she is with her mother's mother, and sometimes we feel these connections. And we may find in this season of autumn, as we go towards the lessening of the light, the barriers are thin between, the divisions between us are lessened as the leaves fall. We are less divided from nature. As we gather around the fire, we are less divided from one another. And we may even feel closer to family and friends wide and far, but also to those who are gone before. And the divisions feel a little less stark between the living and the dead. As I say, these are thin times, these times of closeness. And we experience maybe closeness to the world of spirit, the world of meaning in these thin times, times of magic and wonder. So we're going to enter into a time of meditation, time of silence. Of course, the silence may be accompanied by the sounds of the world, but a time to find that stillness within. And as we do, I invite you to feel the closeness. You might surround yourself with treasured ancestors who have come before, who are with you as you walk this life. You might feel the closeness of nature as we breathe in and breathe out and feel connected with the great cosmos and with this ecosystem which allows us to be. So let us celebrate this thin time, feel close to mystery and wonder, and have a time to be in silence and stillness together. Blessed be. We each week take an offering to support the ministry of this congregation. We also share the plate with an organization that reflects our values, and we're delighted in October to be sharing the plate with Sustainable Hudson Valley. We're talking about the climate change conference coming up, and Sustainable Hudson Valley is helping create sustainable communities here in the face of drastic climate change. One other related chalice offering ask that we have today is, we've been doing innovative stuff. We've been leading with hybrid services and doing things in a new way, and could be recipients of a grant. We're applying to be recipients of a grant to do even more, to do more online, to do more integrated, to be more in person and online. And but we have people to sign up to be what's called a chalice lighter, to give into this grant fund, as it were. So we need 10 people, actually we need 7, because 3 have already signed up, to be chalice lighters. And what that involves is 3 yearly payments of $20, in other words, $60 a year, to be part of this organization that helps give out grants to worthy congregations, which we hope at UU Catskills we are, because we have exciting things we want to do. So I thought I would announce that. I'm sorry to announce that for the newcomers. You can ignore that. But if you've been coming for a while and you're willing to become a chalice lighter, or you'd like to learn more about what that's involved, you can do it online. There's a website where you can do it. You can either see Mark, our president, or Aaron Hilgart is here, or talk to me after the service and learn more about that. As I say, we need 7 loyal members who might be willing to do that, and then we've got some exciting things coming up for this congregation, and looking to expand the ministry of this congregation in exciting ways. So with that, we will have our offertory music to get us in the mood of this time of reflection and renewal, this time of autumn. Thank you all for all you bring to make this community happen, not least your personality and spirit and presence. Thank you for being together. It's good to be together. Now, a story sermon, Thin Times. Morris Huppert lived alone. He lived on a little red house on a couple of acres of land by a road that cuts through a section of woods not far from the Catterskill Creek. You may have passed it in your travels. Cute little house, nothing remarkable. It was the end of October, Halloween. Morris's house was not likely to be descended on by trick-or-treaters. It was out of the way. October was a quiet month. Though it was always a bit quiet at the little red house these days. Morris had moved there with Padrig, his partner of 36 years and husband of 2. Or as Patty often liked to put it, my church husband for 2 years, my disco husband for 34. Patty liked to say they had met at a club, which wasn't, strictly speaking, true. Morris was quite sure they had first encountered each other at Phil's party on Crosby Street that time, a week or 2 before the club. But who cares? It was something that Patty liked to say. He also said he had been swept off his feet by Morris's dancing, which again was a massive exaggeration. Morris wasn't much of a dancer. He was always heavy on his feet. Though later in life he and Patty did learn to waltz, which he was quite proud of, even took foxtrot lessons a little bit. Morris remembered when Patty was at the hospital that last time. Patty asked him to dance for him once when the nurses had left them alone. It was a sweet request, which Morris found embarrassing. And then he was embarrassed that he was embarrassed. Imagine being embarrassed to dance alone in a room with his own husband. So Morris did shuffle around that hospital floor, awkwardly, pretending he was holding his partner, while Padraig from his bed watched and smiled. That wasn't the last day, but it was only a few days after that Padraig Walsh slipped away. Nowadays, Morris Huppert lived alone, which he didn't mind much. He enjoyed his own company. When he did socialize, grabbed a coffee with some other retirees at Willa's, they always saying they were far too busy, even in retirement. And Morris thought, well, good for them. Morris wasn't not busy. He had his obligations. He filled the bird feeders, paid his dues, helped out at the society, went on a trip now and then. But the world was moving at a slightly slower pace for him these days, and in Morris's estimation, was somewhat the better for it. Which is not to say Morris didn't have plans on Halloween. Morris set his table with the tablecloth with the lace embroidery from that trip they'd taken to Romania years ago, and candlesticks. It was a candlelit dinner sort of evening. He sat at a chair with a view to the west window so he could watch the idle sun drift gently behind the Catskill Mountains, draping a layer of radiance over the ochre tones of autumn. It was as glorious as ever. The world was getting into a comfortable dark. Morris got up and set out several plates on the large oak table. He wasn't sure exactly how many to expect. How about 9? There were 9 muses, or was that graces? He liked it anyway. He could always add an extra place setting or take one away. He put out the good silverware, folded the napkins. A nice winter chili was on the pot, with a vegan beef substitute. Hey, why not save the planet while he was at it? His cousin, Beth, was the first to show up. Though Beth wasn't a kid anymore, Morris could see the playful vigor in her expression, the way her eyes lit up, the way she couldn't wait to take stock of the world, wanted to run out there and make it hers. Beth looked at the candlesticks, the chairs, the bowl of candy that Morris had left on the table. "You don't even like candy, Maury." "I left it for you," he said. Beth nodded and smiled that old smile of hers. "Hey, Maury, I see you still play." It took him a second before he realized that Beth was referring to the piano, the baby grand behind him. "Play me something," Beth said. Morris played badly. His fingers did not respond to his wishes these days, but now is not the time for excuses. He played a little ditty, one of the practice pieces that haunted his childhood home when they both were young. He hoped Beth would remember it, and she did. She clapped her hands in recognition and hummed along. Morris didn't have siblings growing up, but he was close to his cousin. She lived on the other side of town. He didn't see her every day, and maybe it was because of that fact that it always seemed a little special when they were together. They would dare each other to cross those rocks over by the dunes as fast as they could, barefoot. It was probably a bad idea, but what could you say? They were kids then. Morris was so focused on his memories and his piano playing that he didn't notice them come in. They were watching his performance. He couldn't tell if they approved. Then again, he never could tell. His mom and dad were people of few words, and what words they had were often negative. At least, it seemed so to Morris. When he came out as gay, they didn't rant and rave. They just tried to pretend it wasn't true. His father refused to even talk about it, or even mostly talk about him at all for the rest of his life. When people would ask about his son, his father would murmur something and change the subject. His mom didn't report this to Morris, but he knew. Word got around. He stopped coming home, mostly, when he was grown up. It wasn't home for him anymore. Why bring that negativity back into his life? They had abandoned him, and it hurt. Well, they showed up tonight anyway. Here they were. He had to give them that, he supposed, even though it was at his invitation. He finished his piece. He turned around on the piano stool. Beth gave a smattering of applause, and he looked at his parents, waited for them to say something. They just stood there. Well, it would have to be him to speak. Even now, it would have to be him. "Thanks for coming," Morris said. His father, still silent as a stone. His mother leapt in and made the least effort. "This looks nice, Morris. You've done well." An affirmation. Holy moly. He'd done well. What on earth did that mean, anyway? Morris didn't have much time to think about that, thankfully, because the next guest strode through the door. He had hoped Rosa would come. She was something of a hero to Morris. Morris was never good at going against the grain. He knew there were injustices in the world, knew so much wasn't right, was terribly, terribly wrong. And Morris always felt he should have done more somehow. He gave to the odd cause now and then, but it never seemed nearly enough. And he knew he was never going to change the world like Greta Thunberg or Martin Luther King, but he had some stubbornness in him, did Morris. And as he got older, he could see how that stubbornness could be used as a virtue. So he admired Rosa, and he sometimes wondered, could he, Morris, ever be in a position to not stand up, not move down the bus, when ordered by an unjust authority to do so? Probably not. And as a white man, he would never have to face the question. But he was being rude. "Thank you for coming," he said to Rosa Parks. He couldn't think what else to say to her. "Please," and he motioned to the table and the chairs surrounding it. "Please." Rosa Parks did not sit down, not yet. She said, "Hope you don't mind, Mr. Huppert. I brought a friend." "Of course," said Morris. The door opened and in came, could it be? It was Moses. Not the Jewish Moses, but Harriet Tubman in the flesh, the Moses of the Underground Railroad. 5 foot 2 inches tall, of pure glory. Even though it was this Halloween night and this special dinner, Morris felt his breath catch in his throat. Harriet Tubman was dead before he was born. This was legendary, ancient history. Tubman read his mind. "Not ancient," said Moses, "and no legend neither. I walked up here not too long ago with my own legs, and many times as well. These forests remember. These forests remember." Of course they did. Some of the trees would have been here to witness the terrified flight, the courage and the daring, the hope, the dared-for hope of a better world. Morris's words came out without even thinking about it. "The Underground Railroad, you freed all those people. How did you do it?" "Don't ever stop," she said. "Keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going." Morris looked at his parents. You could read that statement a lot of ways. He had left his parents to freedom, Oh, that was terrible, he corrected himself. How facile to compare his plight to that of the liberation of an enslaved people. And yet, personally, well, he was free of his parents now. And maybe he had an opportunity to forge a new relationship with them. Too late, perhaps, seeing as they'd both been dead, over 20 years. But you don't stop being in relationship with someone just because they died. Far from it. They were a part of your life, and that means they always will be a part of your life. And that relationship can change too. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. Life had brought him well away from his parents in Conshohocken, and maybe he needed to go away to be safe. But now, in safety, Morris perhaps felt just a little closer to his parents, who weren't perfect, but were who they were. He reached out and held his spectral mother's hand. Even spectral, even in the ethereal realms of his own spirit, the hand felt real in a way that sent shivers down Morris's spine. He recoiled from that realness at first. But then, to know that his mother, for all her faults and for all her graces too, had been flesh and blood, had a welcoming solidity to it. "Mom," he said, "this is my husband, Padraig." And just at that moment, like magic, the door whisked open and Patty strolled into the room, healthy and hale. Patty took the hand of Francine, Morris's mother, and he kissed it. He shook the hand firmly of Morris's father, Joe. This was the first time this meeting had ever happened. And yes, it was happening now only in his imagination, if that's how you want to put it. But what of that? We are creatures of imagination. Imagination is a vast landscape, a place for exciting travels when we are younger. And then as we age, we discover with all those travels, it has been a home for us. And not a bad one, either. "Well, are we going to dance?" They waltzed across the room, Padraig and Morris, even a bit of foxtrot. Morris's spirit couldn't decide whether to be giddy or sad. This ghostly dance, was it one person or two? A taste of the past. It was a reminder that Patty was not there, not really, not in the way he had been there for so much of Morris's life. All the bits that mattered, really. Morris looked over at Beth. She gave that old grin, but she was only a mirage, really. He could look right through her. They were taking their places at the table now. His husband next to the conductor of the Underground Railroad, Beth next to Morris's dad. She always got on with him better than he did, actually. Her mother and Rosa Parks. "There's still 3 seats left unfilled," said Morris. 2, Patty responded. "You're here too, Mor." "Oh yeah, he was here too." He sat next to Patty, put his head on his shoulder. "I've missed you," Morris said. "I know," said Padraig. A child then walked into the room next. He looked unfamiliar. Morris couldn't place him. He didn't have children of his own. Was this supposed to be Morris as a child? It didn't look like him. "This," said the ghost of Padraig Welsh, reading his thoughts, "this, Mor, is the ghost of the next century. This is a child of this generation who survived us at our worst, survived nuclear weapons, climate change, and all the everyday hatreds that continually threaten to turn our species into fossils. This child, he's not real, and yet he is real. Tell me, dear heart, do you believe in this boy? It's easy to believe in me, my love. We've spent so much time together. Do you believe in him?" It was then that Morris began to cry and realize he was, in fact, still here. All his past with him, too, but seeing that helpless, as yet unreal boy, the child of the 22nd century, Morris knew he still had relations and responsibilities aplenty, and they called to him. That boy looked at him expectant. Just then the doorbell rang. It was the real doorbell. It jarred Morris, but he wiped his eyes, made sure his shirt was properly tucked in, and opened the door. And there was a little girl on the step. A real girl, with a car at the end of the drive. "Trick or treat!" Morris didn't get trick-or-treaters out that far, but it was Isabel, a neighborhood girl. He was friendly with their parents. She was dressed as an astronaut, carrying a pillowcase with a few little candies in it. Her father was waving from the car. "We just wanted to say hi," Dave yelled. "Don't worry about the candy. We just wanted to say hi." "No, wait," Morris said. He went inside, got the bowl of candy he had gotten for Beth, and poured the entire bowl into Isabel's pillowcase. "Really, you don't need to," Dave stammered. "That's very kind, Morris, but she doesn't need all that. You keep it." No, said Morris. "Nobody in here wants any. They're all right." And they were all right. And so was he. There was a bowl of veggie chili waiting, and his whole life, which was not over yet. Morris took Isabel's tiny hand in his, shook her hand, and said, "Treat. Thanks for coming, Isabel. It's a treat to see you." Then he waved at Dave, closed the door, and sat at his table with the nice lace tablecloth, entirely alone and very far from it. Blessed be. Happy Halloween. Now we have our closing hymn. It's number 317, "We Are Not Our Own."
We are not our own. Earth forms us. Human leaves on nature's growing vine. Fruit of many generations. Seeds of life divine. We are not alone. Earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far. Fruit of many generations, seeds of life, who we are. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, peace and justice, willing and aware. Give to earth healthy, all things living, liturgies of care. Let us be a house of welcome, living stone upholding living stone, gladly showing all our neighbors we are not our own.
Friends, dear family of all beings, we are not alone. Even as our lives may feel drifting in the wind like the autumn leaves, we are held on a beautiful breeze. We are loved. We are one with our neighbors, our friends, our family of all beings, and one with that nameless spirit, stillness, peace within. So let us reconnect to one another. Let us remind ourselves that just like the leaves and the trick-or-treaters, we can transform and change and adapt, and all will be well. Let us be one with the Spirit and one with one another, one with all our relations, and know transformation and love and stillness and peace. May it be so. Amen. We now extinguish our chalice with the words we read each week. we extinguish this
chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this